Look at this. Aren't these just the same old boring pieces of advice? When you boil them down, they all say the same thing. Real change only happens through action. And yes, that's true. Without action, watching 100 videos about public speaking won't make you a better communicator. Without action, reading 10 business books won't make you any money. That's why, whenever we gain the knowledge we need, we almost instantly feel the urge to put it into action. Learning communication tips, we try them out with our friends. Consuming productivity hacks, we immediately apply them to our work. At first glance, that seems like the right move. We think, the sooner I act, the sooner I'll see results. But in reality, it's never that simple. No matter how hard we try, failure can still happen. And when it does, we tend to look for something or someone to blame. If it's another person, we accuse them of not supporting us. If it's the situation, we blame bad luck. Blaming does bring a moment of relief. It makes us feel like it's not entirely our fault. But the more we do it, the more powerless we feel over our own lives. Yet before we point fingers, or even before we take action, there's one crucial thing we often overlook. Something fundamental that determines everything in our life. What is it? The structure behind our actions. Because the truth is, everything we do is shaped by two underlying forces. And if we ignore them, even the most well-intentioned actions can lead to disappointment. In her book, neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett explains that every action we take is shaped by two underlying forces. The problem is, most of us focus only on the visible part, the action itself, while ignoring the other two forces that actually determine its quality. So, to understand the whole picture, let's start with the most familiar one: action. Action is what we do toward ourselves, other people, or our surroundings. It can be as simple as talking, walking, helping someone, or even doing something harmful. We can all agree that every action has consequences. Some bring us closer to the life we want, while others pull us further away. If we want the first kind, the kind that moves us forward, we need to produce high-quality actions, and that quality is determined by what comes before the action. What is that? Before we act, our brain actually predicts what's about to happen. It scans past experiences, compares them to the current situation, and makes a guess. The goal is simple: to help our body and emotions respond quickly and hopefully correctly. For example, when someone takes too long to reply to our message, our brain might predict rejection, even though they might just be busy or need some space. When we hear a sound in the bushes, our brain might predict a snake when it's just the wind or a passing cat. When we try to build a reading habit, our brain might predict boredom, even though the book could actually be exciting if we gave it more time. See the pattern? In all these cases, our brain doesn't wait for facts. It jumps to conclusions, and those conclusions drive our actions. Now, here's the next question. Is there something that comes before prediction? The answer is yes. A concept is how our brain gives meaning to the world around us. It's not something random. It's built from every experience we've ever had. Our culture, our upbringing, the media we consume, and the people we interact with. Take the concept of success, for example. For someone raised in a family that values material achievement, success might mean having a lifestyle that others can admire. But for someone raised in a family that values purpose and meaning, success might mean contributing something positive to society. Now we can see the full process behind every action. First, the brain forms a concept, like success, based on all the experiences we've had. Then it uses that concept to make predictions. If our concept of success is material achievement, the brain predicts that fulfillment comes from owning luxury items or reaching certain financial goals. But if our concept of success is meaningful contribution, the brain predicts that fulfillment comes from helping others or creating positive impact. Finally, those predictions guide our actions, from the jobs we choose, the risks we avoid, the goals we set, to the sacrifices we're willing to make. At this point, you might be thinking, come on, this sounds too complicated. As long as I have good intentions and take action, everything will turn out fine. That way of thinking might sound reasonable, but there's one thing you should know. It can quietly lead you into trouble. Listen to this. Even if you think you don't need to worry about concepts and predictions, the truth is they're always running in the background, constantly, automatically, and almost always without your awareness. Imagine your friend is going through a tough time. As a caring friend, you want to comfort them by saying, "Stay positive," or "Just let it go." You mean well, you're trying to help, but instead of feeling comforted, your friend pulls away. Why? Because your words make their problem feel dismissed. They end up feeling even more alone. What's happening here is that your brain is operating from a concept that support means cheering someone up with positive words. From that concept, your brain makes a prediction. If I encourage them, they'll feel better. So your action becomes trying to lift them up while unintentionally ignoring their feelings. See the issue? That concept overlooks something essential. When someone is hurting, what they often need more than motivation, they need to feel heard and understood. As long as you hold on to this concept, your brain can't make a better prediction, and your actions, though well-intentioned, can end up pushing people away. Now, let's look at another example. Imagine you've been chasing a dream for years, maybe building a business or becoming an artist. You keep hearing, "Don't give up, keep going." So you do. You push through setbacks, sleepless nights, and endless effort, believing success is just one more try away. But instead of getting closer to your dream, you start to feel drained. The harder you push, the further it seems to slip away. What's happening here is that your brain is operating from a concept that never giving up always leads to success. From that concept, it makes a prediction. If I just keep going, I'll eventually make it. So your action becomes pushing forward no matter what, while unintentionally ignoring whether the path you're on still aligns with your reality. But here's the problem. That concept overlooks something important. Never give up doesn't guarantee success. It's valuable, yes, but only when it's paired with reflection and adjustment. Without those, never giving up can quietly turn into stubbornness. If this concept stays unchecked, your brain can't make a better prediction. And your actions, though driven by determination, can quietly lead you further from the dream you're trying to reach. Now you can see the bigger picture, right? Your concepts and predictions quietly shape every action you take. And if either one is flawed, even your best intentions can lead to frustration or disappointment. That's why it's not enough to just act. You also have to take responsibility for the concepts and predictions, because those invisible forces are what truly steer your life. Good intentions and actions can only lead to real change when they're supported by the right concepts and accurate predictions. That's why we need to take responsibility for all three. Ask yourself these questions honestly. Does your concept of money actually help you make good financial decisions? Does your concept of love guide you not only when things go well, but also when they don't? And what about your other concepts? Are they broad and flexible enough to help you adapt to different situations? These questions matter because the answers reveal how effective our concepts are in dealing with reality. The narrower and more rigid our concepts, the harder it is to adapt to new or unexpected situations. For example, if someone believes that asking for help means they're not independent, then when they face serious problems, they might pretend to be strong instead of reaching out. But isn't that kind of concept what keeps people from getting the support they need and leaves them feeling lonely? That's why we need to take responsibility for the concepts we hold. It means making time to reflect on them and being willing to expand their meanings, especially when those meanings have done more harm than good. For instance, if we believe that crying means weakness, why not expand that meaning into emotional honesty or even a bridge for deeper connection with people we trust? With that broader meaning, wouldn't it be easier to meet our emotional needs in a healthy way? If we think that making mistakes equals failure, what if we also saw it as a step toward understanding what doesn't work so we don't repeat it? With that added meaning, wouldn't we feel braver to start again or explore something new? If we've always believed that saying yes all the time makes us a good person, why not also recognize that it can be a way of neglecting our own needs? With that new understanding, wouldn't we be able to set clearer boundaries and make choices that don't harm us? I understand, it's not easy to set aside concepts that have guided us for years. Even after working hard to broaden a concept through learning and new experiences, we might still fall back on old meanings that don't serve us anymore. But isn't that precisely when our responsibility for our concepts is put to the test? If a single concept can have multiple meanings, does that mean the brain can generate multiple predictions? Absolutely. Take the concept of silence, for example. In the past, your concept of silence might have meant that someone was angry. But once you broaden its meaning, silence can represent many things. Someone might be listening intently, thinking, unsure how to respond, or disagreeing but choosing not to interrupt. All of these can be true, depending on the context. If you're in a conflict and the other person suddenly goes quiet, your brain might predict they're angry, and that could be accurate. But in a discussion, someone's silence might simply mean they're processing what you've said. The problem is, our brain's predictions don't always match reality. This mismatch is known as a prediction error. For instance, if your coworker's facial expression or body language comes across as dismissive, your brain might update its prediction. Instead of thinking they're processing the information, you might assume they see your opinion as unimportant. That's why we need to take responsibility for our predictions, not by demanding that we're always right, but by recognizing that our predictions can be wrong. With that awareness, we can respond to reality, not to our assumptions. We don't live in a perfect theory. In the real world, expanding our concepts and correcting prediction errors still doesn't guarantee the right action. Let's say you start to understand that a friend's anger doesn't always mean a personal attack. It might just be a sign that they're struggling to express their emotions effectively. With this new concept, your prediction might shift to something like, they need support, not opposition. In theory, this prediction should guide your actions to be calmer and more supportive, right? But in reality, you might still respond defensively and a conflict erupts instead. In moments like this, we must recognize that every action we take can be influenced by many factors. Habits that aren't yet formed, physical or mental states, psychological pressure, or personal limits that need to be respected. And when our actions don't live up to the concepts and predictions we've worked on, that's exactly when we need to take responsibility for our actions. This means we are honest about what we did. We accept the consequences. Even if they're uncomfortable, we correct our response as best as we can. These three responsibilities are like the three sides of a triangle, inseparable, supporting one another to create the outcomes we want. When we take responsibility for all three, we're not only striving for the best outcomes for ourselves, but also fostering good for the people around us. Of course, this isn't easy. It's not something that can be mastered overnight. Practicing this triangle of responsibility is challenging and requires a lifelong commitment. But the results are always worth it. Just imagine if our families, friends, co-workers, and everyone around us practiced this responsibility together. How many conflicts could be avoided or resolved? How many relationships could feel safer, deeper, and more honest? And ultimately, how much could our lives change for the better? So, are you ready to put the triangle of responsibility into practice?